And we have now a few minutes for discussion, questions, comments. Joseph.
Can you show the first, the one with the building and the...
The building, here, that one.
I understand what you say. No.
No, this one.
Yeah, this is the right one.
Okay.
The columns would.
I think I understand your argument and the argument of the Midrash and so on, but just in terms of the logic or the rhetoric of what goes on in the first quote, I think there is a certain shift or jump, because if the columns were taller, the walls were higher and the ceiling were higher, it doesn't say if the building had 25 columns, if the building had 7 walls, if the ceiling and so on. It doesn't change the building. The building is taller, bigger, and so on, but it's the same building, the same structure. And then to go from there to say 3 eyes, 3 legs would be beneficial, this is not the same thing. It is one is turning into a monster, kind of. I mean, as you said, it's no longer itself, while the building is in that. And I think this is why you can say it would be even more beautiful. Otherwise, you would have the same problem with the building. If you start adding on more doors to the building so it doesn't make the building more beautiful. So I think in terms of the rhetoric, they're actually shifting in the middle to something different.
Yes, well, it makes sense to me. It's a possible reading, although, adding another eye is like adding another foot to this height of the ceiling. Well, okay.
Bigger,
no. I see what you mean, but of course, all depends on your aesthetic principles. But sometimes, if you make the building exactly the same, but on a different scale, much larger, but it looks structurally exactly the same, it will have a different effect completely and lose, in a way, its identity. So I leave that open. For me, I mean, the contrast. What interested me in the contrast is between what we can fantasize about the non-human world and about our own identity, that we can do so in the first case rather than the second. But I take your point.
Let's select a few.
I wanted to maybe just put what we were talking about in terms of human perfectibility in conversation with some of the things that were brought up this morning about the changing sort of ideas about what an essential human nature would be, sort of the postmodern move to have a non-essential conception of the human being. And I think I'm interested as well how this even relates to Yaron's point about the imagination of democracy. So if it is the case that the nature of the essence of what democracy is, but also of what the human is, then sort of how does this kind of come back to what we say about the essential, I guess, morality of what these things are. I mean, I'm thinking as well to the case of collecting urine and saying that certain parts of the human being need to be enhanced, or certain segments of the population need to proliferate, and others need to be sort of occluded. And I guess to the fundamental question is who's, I guess, in Sheila Jastanov's provocation, knowledge gets to count as to what kind of essential natures are the ones to prioritize as against what kind of sort of idea about democracy that we actually have in making that.
Anna?
It was a follow-up of Jose's question. I had this conversation with Karl Skoretsky, who is a religious person who is a pioneer in genetics, and he was saying from religious perspective that there is no normativity in nature as far as genetic enhancement on his level is concerned. So I also have this troubles. I mean, I think it's the funny, the interesting part of this whole story is to see when we become a monster in this framework and till what point we can do something. Because Skoretsky's position is to say, I don't see any reason to to be a victim of my genetic problems, right? So this is why he went into genetics. So how do we know where to stop?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a second. Snape.
Just two short comments. One is that I do agree that all these three talks were about enhancement, but the difference is that Yaron was actually talking about not about enhancement of democracy, but about salvation of democracy, I think, more than enhancement. And I think that's where the difference is and how one goes about it. And I'm not sure that what you suggest is so sort of immediately possible. Let's put it this way. And when I was listening to you, David, I actually thought about a comment that Darwin made concerning Paley, the theological. And he said that for somebody like Paley, the difficulty was to explain the imperfect. For Darwin, the difficulty was to explain the perfect.
Yeah.
Amnon, and then we'll get back to the speakers.
Yeah, question one for your own. In terms of clarification, usually in science there are controversies, and I think that in every political decision there is a sort of controversies that exist in the sciences themselves, including economy and such. So in terms of really identifying what is the relationship between science and politics, you need somehow to see whether or not there is some kind of total reflection within science of all of politics. And if I may, a short question to David, what is your reflection about the non-identity, kind of the controversy between the houses, the Bet Hillel, Bet Shammai, about whether it's better for human being to be born at all, and if this type of way sort of decision is, well, it's better not to be born, so it's a sort of quite contradicting to the approach that you're taking. That is because in a way it's not about the kind of contradicting God's way, but more like a sort of a practical type of solution. Although it would be better, then still what you have to do is to continue this.
Okay, so I'll throw another one in, and then we'll get back to the speaker. So for each of the talks, it seems like there's a counterfactual, a non-human, almost a non-human counterfactual that allows us to think about human politics or ethics or democracy. And so for Tamar, it's the animal as the point where the human is discussed, and for Yaron, obviously it's within democracy, but there's a side for technology that you raised, which is key to think about human potentiality. And David, the role of God. I mean, what's the advantage of having this discussion through the Midrash rather than having it directly from moral philosophy? Okay, so now let's go by the order of speakers. So Tamar, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I very much like the idea that all three presentations all had to do with enhancement. In the case of urine, it was absolutely. So first, researchers saw the potential, but with it always came the fears about both monstrosity and the danger of not existing. So I would say that in earlier stages, before urine was signified as this potential resource, they used, as I mentioned, among other things, pituitary glands from dead people, and this was very also waste, but questions about danger around using dead bodies was always there, and when urine became very kind of central, it was much less dangerous, and indeed at some point science proved that pituitary glands or biological material that is dangerous, but they found that it can cause the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. So they completely started, and the scientists that dealt with that completely became outskirts, in the outskirts of the scientific community. And then, so urine became this sort of safe substance to use. It's sterile and everything, but then questions of where it came from when it was an animal, there were always fears about what it would do, would it enhance it, whether it would eliminate what human boundaries then are. So from very early on, these studies, including Sondek, who was writing about whether human urine is something that is toxic or if it's dangerous, and he concluded that as long as it's human urine, it's fine. And I would say, I mean, the pharmaceutical companies continue to use animal-based urine for humans, and also the other way around. So to also to what you were saying, it's not only in this case, it's not only that the imagined other or useful resource for enhancement is the animal, but it's the human for the animal too.
Right.
So I would say altogether today still horse blood and urine is used for hormone therapy, but not for fertility treatments as much as I know. There was always also this stream of producing a synthetic hormonal drug, never completely materialized, but postmenopausal urine from women is, I mean, the only ones who have postmenopause is still having used today. So I mean, there's a gradual trend towards using human material for humans, but it's never completely clean.
Okay. Thank you, Tamar. Yaron?
So I'm not going to comment on David because I have a lot of things.
Yes, and time is running short, unfortunately.
First, with respect to Snehit, of course, my points are not suggesting self-evidently, immediately workable solutions, but there are more kind of invitations for experimental approach to this. I believe that despite the abuse of the internet, certain developments of institutions and even some minimal forms of regulations that are being considered now in different places can to some extent enhance our possibility for minimally shared common sense as an epistemological foundation for public discourse in politics. Now, without this, all hell breaks, as we can see sometimes. So it seems to me that Giambattista Vico was very right when he said, even when he talked about his own fantasies, that common sense is a matter of training. It's not something you're born with common sense. Sometimes we know it when we talk to our mother-in-laws. But the main point is that without a certain kind of a minimal epistemological experience of shared, and it can only be in communities, democratic politics, in my opinion, cannot thrive. The other thing is that you mentioned about conflicts in science. This is very interesting because the scientific controversies were also a major contribution to a realistic concept of science as not a source of absolute truth or absolute knowledge. You know, some very interesting theoretical physicists I talked to when I recently at Harvard and Stanford said to me that in the competing models of the world by theoretical physics, there is a sense that they cannot be optimistic about resolving and ordering these theories as the more probable or the most truthful, because of total pessimism about ever getting the information necessary to make such decisions. So it's, in my opinion, even physics today, of course it's the theoretical physics, but in many ways what we saw it also in applied form in the curators and so on, and the failure to predict long-term contingent situations where it can bring catastrophes. I think physics is the crown of all the sciences for hundreds of years, is also undergoing a major reframing in terms of the authority of science. So I'm not saying that everything is politics. Hopefully not.
Thank you, Yaron. David?
Short counter comments. Anna, I'm not an essentialist, so I don't. In principle, cannot draw generalize in terms of some a priori set of constitutive elements of what it means to be human. But I do believe that we can test our intuitions about that, which are fluid. I mean, human species, human beings change and will continue changing. And we may want to improve ourselves or our children or even our grandchildren in ways which would seem to us compatible with what we, within the borders of what it means to be a human. But if you had the opportunity to meet your great-great-great-great-grandchild, you would be horrified. That's not what I meant in that creation, you know. So these are the limits, and they are fluid, and therefore I think that genetic enhancement could be used, but only with caution or gradually, so as not to overstep those limits. But there's no a priori limit of that limit, because unlike the Jewish tradition, I don't have a well grounded theory of what it means to be human, you know, so that's an easier way. As to Snait, yes, of course, the whole point, I think also here, we are imperfect, but that's all right. It doesn't. Yeah, and if you want to perfect yourself, you can try, but then you become someone different, and you don't want that to be. It goes back, and finally for Shai's question, why do we need that thought experiment with God? I think that's a nice. That's what attracted me to these sources, that on the one hand, they give a wonderful traditional answer to the question why we should be cautious with enhancement or improvement in terms of a teleological view of a divine structure of nature, of some essence of essentialism in human nature. On the other hand, these sages, that's what really struck me, were aware that they don't need God. They can say, look, this thought experiment is silly. Don't have to appeal to God in some naturalistic or moral ways as controlling those fantasies. You're talking nonsense. It's childish to think that way. That attracted me to him.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. This was a great day. Hope to see you in another lifetime, or in this life in a different role.
Thank you, Shai. Thank you, and also Chagai.